You can solve ratio problems using a double number line. Grace runs 2 miles in 12 minutes. If she continues to run at the same rate, determine how many minutes it will take her to run 10 miles. When I use a double number line, what I'm doing is I'm using a diagram that shows two number lines, one on top of the other. These two number lines are going to be used to represent our ratios. It's really important when you create double number lines that you label each number line so you can tell which value goes with each label. So I know that if Grace runs 0 miles, it will take her 0 minutes. I also know, based on my question, that when Grace runs 2 miles, it takes her 12 minutes. Now these two numbers go together to create our ratio. I want you to look at them for a second. So I can see that my 2 is on my top number line. That represents my 2 miles. The 12 is on my bottom number line. That represents my 12 minutes. See how the labels can help us know this is 2 miles and 12 minutes? So this ratio, 2 over 12, is the same as what I have here. The only difference is I have it set up as a number line instead of as a fraction. All right, so now let's think about how we can answer this problem. I know that every time Grace runs 2 miles, it takes her 12 minutes. So if I were going to continue this pattern, the next time that Grace ran 2 miles, it would take her another 12 minutes. So what I can do is I can add 2 to the amount of miles she runs, which means 4 miles, and I can add 12 to my numbers of minutes. That means Grace runs 4 miles in 24 minutes. And I can continue this pattern again. After another 2 miles, 4 plus 2 would be 6 miles, I'm going to have another 12 minutes, which would be 36. So again, I'm adding my minutes every time I add my miles. Now, 2 more miles would be 8 miles, would be 12 more minutes. And finally, one more set of 2 miles will give me a total of 10 miles, and that would be 60 minutes. Okay? Now, that's one way that I can figure out the answer to this problem. It will take her 60 minutes to run 10 miles. Another way I could have done this is using what I know about multiplication. Every time Grace runs 2 miles, it takes her 12 minutes. Well, her running 10 miles is like saying she's running 2 miles 5 times. So I could have just done 2 times 5 to get my 10 miles. Every time she runs 2 miles, it takes 12 minutes, which means I'm going to have 5 groups of 12 minutes. So I could have done 12 times 5 to get my 60 minutes. Either way will give me the same answer. Now this question down here says, what is the unit rate that describes the number of minutes per mile? Now we can use our double number line for this also, but let's start off with what we've been doing. When we've done problems like this in the past, we've set them up as a ratio. Grace runs 2 miles in 12 minutes. But we've realized, okay, I don't want to know how long it takes for 2 miles. What I really want to know is how long it takes for 1 mile. So 1 mile is like having half the distance. So I'm going to divide this by 2. And if it's half the distance, it's going to take half the time. So I can divide my denominator by 2. And instead of it being 2 miles in 12 minutes, it'll end up being 1 mile in 6 minutes. Now if I were going to show this on my double number line, I would use what I know about number lines and think, okay, 1 mile is going to be right in here between 0 and 2. And again, I'm thinking, okay, it's half the distance. So if I take my miles and divide them by 2, and I take my time and divide it in 2, that'll tell me that it's 6 minutes. All right, here's the start of our number line. I cleaned it up a little bit, but we can still see that Grace does 1 mile in 6 minutes, or 2 miles in 12 minutes, and finally, we knew that it was 10 miles in 60 minutes. So here's our next question. Grace decides she wants to run a half marathon, which is 13 miles. How many minutes will it take her to run 13 miles? So my ultimate answer, the thing that I finally want to have here, is way out here, 13 miles. How long will it take her to go 13 miles? And again, there's more than one way to find this answer. One thing I could do is continue my pattern. I know every time Grace runs 2 miles, okay, every time she runs 2 miles, it takes 12 minutes, which means when she runs 12 miles, it will have taken her 72 minutes. And I know looking here that every time Grace runs 1 mile, it's another 6 minutes, which means it will take her a total of 78 minutes to run 13 miles. Now there is another way that I could do this problem. Let me clean this up a little bit. And the other way that I can do this problem is using multiplication. I know that it takes 1 mile is 6 minutes. I know that 13 miles is like having 13 groups of 1 mile, which means it's going to be like having 13 groups of 6 minutes. So I could just do 13 times 6 and get my answer of 78 and just jump ahead to that part of the number line. Last but not least, let's look at one more question. Grace decided instead of running a certain number of miles, what she wanted to do was run for 2 hours. Okay. The question is, how many miles can she run in 2 hours? Well, I know that she can run 10 miles in 60 minutes. And I know that 60 minutes is 1 hour. So this right here is 1 hour. If I can figure out how many minutes are in 2 hours, I can find the answer to this problem. 2 hours is going to be 120 minutes. So if I can figure out how far she runs in 120 minutes, I can figure this out. So to go from 60 to 120, that's just times 2. So I take my miles, 10 miles times 2 means that she'll run 20 miles in 120 minutes. And that should make sense because if this is 1 hour, if we just double it, that'll give me 2 hours. So again, if she can run 10 miles in 1 hour, she'll run 20 miles in 2 hours.